Hello, this is Dr. Jeff, and so excited to be here with Dr. Giacomo. Can you introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself at this time?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Sabina Giakoumis, and I am a science teacher at Magnolia High School. And I am the new project coordinator of the MagnoliaAgriScience Community Center.
This is so exciting news. I know this is revolving around food deserts. Can you share a little bit about food deserts to folks who may not be as familiar?
Sure, yeah. So a food desert, by definition, is an area or a neighborhood where people live that do not have access to fresh, affordable produce within their community. So usually that's defined by a half-mile radius. And some people might think, well, if I live in the hills and it takes 2 miles to get down to the grocery store, I could just go to the grocery store, farther away. And we have to assume that not everyone has a car. So that's why that half-mile radius around a house is what's considered to be a food desert if there is not fresh organic produce. Usually these areas are speckled with, small mom and pop liquor stores, 7-Elevens, and fast food restaurants.
So how much of the United States, or let's go into California or even Anaheim where we're at, would you consider to be a food desert where if a student or an adult wanted to get some fresh food that they would not be able to find it?
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good question. I honestly don't know the answer to that, how many neighborhoods there are. There's a few websites out there. OC Advance is one of them, where you can find statistics and data on specific neighborhoods. And if that neighborhood, and down to the cross streets, if that neighborhood has access to fresh, affordable fruits and vegetables.
I remember watching this video documentary on food deserts, and it was much higher than I expected in the United States, that a large portion of the population, more than we'd expect, do not have access to fresh food. And how about for Magnolia High School where you're at? Do students and the community have access to fresh food?
Yeah, so I think there's a misconception sometimes around a community, because I think if we asked our Magnolia students or our Dale students, do you have access to food? Of course, right? There's food. There's a Jack in the Box on the corner of Dale Junior High School. There is a McDonald's and a 7-Eleven on the corner of Magnolia High School. There's a liquor store right around the corner from both schools. So of course we have access to food, but there's a big difference of having access to, cheap processed foods that are not good for us, and having access to affordable, rich in nutrient, fruits and vegetables.
Yes, I remember being on the Dale campus and, students coming in with a Coke and flaming hot Cheetos and eating that for breakfast like every single day. And once again, every once in a while, that's nice to have Coke and flaming hot Cheetos. I like that too, but on a daily basis, what is the cost of a food desert in a community?
Yeah, so there is a huge health cost to our communities that live in neighborhoods that have food deserts. And so the health cost is, long term. We know that obesity can cause lots of different health issues like diabetes, like cancer, like heart disease and stroke. And so all of that weighs on society. It's not just the individual family that has to take care of the people that have the health issues, but there is a cost to our healthcare system as well. So I know in Anaheim, we have seen multiple dialysis centers start to pop up that we were not seeing 20 years ago. So the other cost, I think, is life expectancy. And if you look at areas that have food, that are in food deserts, and you look at the life expectancy of those specific neighborhoods versus the life expectancy in a neighborhood that does have access to fresh, affordable produce, there is a big difference in how the lifespan that you will live.
So many companies are out there, our government's out there, and wanting to see our people be healthy. A lot of millions, billions of dollars being spent on this very topic. Why the MAC? Or first of all, what is the MAC idea that is being talked about?
Yeah, the Magnolia AgriScience Community Center is being built on Magnolia's campus. And the reason, like, why Magnolia and not other schools, we just happen to have a 2-acre lot of land behind our school that is owned by the Anaheim Union High School District. And so Magnolia is also centrally located within our 8 comprehensive and nine high schools. So it's a place really where all of the AUHSD can benefit from that land. And so our plan is to build a full working farm on those 2 acres.
So when you say a full working plan on the 2-acre plot of land at Magnolia, what is that exactly? What is on that land?
Yeah, so our plan is to have, we have plans for a fruit orchard, so stone fruits of peaches, plums, nectarines, avocados. So a big portion of the farm is for fruit trees. And then other portions of the farm are for market agriculture. So just like you see the rows and rows of strawberries, or rows and rows of lavender flowers, rows and rows of, tomatoes, Brussels sprouts, lettuce, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower. We have 8 market rows, squares, that we will have put into that 2-acre space. We have a berry patch that we're going to be installing actually January 17th during Servathon. And another piece of the MAC, one of the most important pieces, is we actually will have a community center on the farm. So there's a place where people can come and learn from each other. We have plans for guest speakers. We have plans for the community to come and share their knowledge of, cultural recipes, of farming techniques, of different ways that people can grow food on their own so that they have access to fresh, affordable food.
Dr. Giakoumis, I know you've shared in the past how, this is not just going to be a farm, but it's really a place to see a cultural and social shift in the way that people look at food and their food habits. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I think this idea of cultural and social shift, that was not my term. Somebody brought that up a while ago, and I loved it so much I stole it, and we've kind of coined it into our theory of change, that we don't want to just have this as a place. I know sometimes people think, we're just going to be giving out free food, right? Which is great, which is part of what we want to do for the community. But we really want people to understand why this type of food is important for their families. We want people to understand why this may increase their life expectancy if this is a lifestyle shift that they can make. So we really want the entire community to benefit from the knowledge that they gained, the education that they can gain at the community center, by engaging with our guest speakers, by engaging in volunteer opportunities, by engaging in sharing the cultural recipes in our outdoor kitchen, by engaging in sharing farming techniques or learning farming techniques and using them in their own backyards or on their patios. So that's what we mean by the cultural and social shift.
Wow, I see 2 different pieces there. One is kind of like a social aspect, and another is a kind of a health benefit as well. I'm going to ask about the health benefit first, actually. So how does exactly students growing this food or learning how this food is grown or walking the garden make a difference in how they choose their food?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of research out there that shows that when kids are engaged in growing their own food, they're more likely to try it. So if I bring an eggplant over to your house and your kids have never seen an eggplant before, they're probably going to look at it, smell it, go, that looks weird, and I'm not going to try it. But if they grow their own eggplant and they pick that own eggplant, they watch it grow every day or once a week, and we say, okay, what are we going to do with this eggplant, and look up a bunch of recipes. That's what that change can do for children. And I think also understanding the nutrient benefits of those types of foods, and what does vitamin C do for our body? What does vitamin A do for our body? And what is magnesium, potassium? What do each one of those specific nutrients do, and why do I need them to be a better athlete, to do better in school, right? yeah, to think it, to be able to stay up at night, you know, and have those stress hormones going. How does all of that relate to each other? I think that's the important piece that we want to teach our students as well.
You know, during the pandemic, my sister had created like a community garden in her backyard, and my niece and nephew, who are very young, they're in Anaheim Elementary School District. They gave me a little tour of that. I had not seen it before, and as they were giving me the tour of all the different foods, they were actually picking things up like and then eating them as we went, the organic food that was being grown. And I was like, wow, they know the names of all these different organic foods and they're eating them as they go. So I definitely resonate with what you're saying. Like if the students are having the opportunity to learn about the food, talk about the food, study the food, they're much more inclined to eat the food as well, this healthy food that's so nutritious. And the second part of that is bringing the community together. You mentioned how food is a cultural thing. It could bring people together. Tell me more about this.
Yeah, our district is so diverse. So at one point, and I don't quote me, but at one point in Magnolia's history, we had 27 different languages being spoken at our school site. And historically, Magnolia and Dale, but many of our other surrounding communities in Anaheim, it is the first place where different cultures come when they come to the United States. And so there's a wealth of knowledge that we have that can be shared with everyone else. And I think that builds our community, our respect for each other, but it also can help us learn to love lots of other foods. There's just a lot to share. And I also think, you know, how there's different languages out there that have been lost over time, and different dialects of specific languages that have been lost through the years. So I feel the same way about different foods. So, you know, my grandmother can make amazing tamales. My mom can make okay tamales. I don't know how to make tamales. I would have to look it up, you know, as a recipe in my phone. I could probably figure it out. But these recipes that our grandparents and great-grandparents have need to be kept in the family, just like language.
That's such a great story, Dr. Giakoumis. You know, I have my students currently also learning about this project, doing soapbox speeches. And one student shared how they have a recipe book in the family that goes back 100 years, where they continue to share the traditions of these healthy dishes, healthy stories. I mean, perhaps there could be community recipes that are developed to continue to share what healthy dishes could look like. Thank you for sharing that story. So, you know, I know we talked a little bit about the 2-acre vacant lot right now. I know when I walked with you, it was just pretty like dry and just dirt. And then just a little bit earlier, you talked about the different kinds of things that might be growing there. Can you tell me what we might be seeing, what we might be hearing, touching, tasting? What would we be seeing like 6 months from now or 1 year from now?
Yeah, so if you went out there right now, it actually is not just a vacant lot anymore. We have the irrigation has gone into the ground. So it's all the things that go into a construction project before you actually see the growth. So all the underground stuff. The electrical lines have gone in. We have the plant compost has been dumped. So we have new soil amendment that will be tilled into the ground. The tilling has been done. So we are officially ready to start our build as of this week. So very exciting. All of that work has been done. Before in February, we are hiring a farmer. So there will be a full-time farmer that will be working on that land. And by March, we will be planting our market rows. We will, the trees, the stone fruit orchard that I talked about will not be going in until 23, 24. Only because we're waiting on, so Magnolia is also getting a new cybersecurity building. So we're waiting for that construction to be done before we can work on the other end of the farm. So the community center will be there, so people can come and, you know, eat food and enjoy, you know, they can wash things. So they can wash a tomato, you know, in the sink that's there. We can prep some of the food. So some of the food will start to be harvested in May and June of this year. And this spring, we're actually bringing students onto the MAC site to experience these learning labs. So UCI Science Project and Gear Up will be running these learning labs where students can engage in the farm and learn about soil erosion, learn about pollinators, learn about air quality. So we have a series of science lessons that students will be learning in the farm space that we think that will be a positive experience.
So amazing. I remember this just being kind of an idea just in the summer, and then so much has happened since then, as you were mentioning. Even since when I visited Magnolia maybe about a month ago, so much has already been done. Appreciating your leadership and service. Is there a call to action that you want to give out to the community, whether they're students or educators, on this district-wide PBL that's starting to be formed?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question. So I think for the students and the community, my call to action would just be, be open to learning something new. It might not be the traditional education that we are used to seeing in, public city schools. And so be willing to come out and learn alongside us. Be willing to come out and volunteer on our land to help the community have access to fresh, affordable produce. And I have a different call to action for educators. And I feel really strongly that we as educators, and I'm sure you feel the same way, we have an obligation to the communities that we work in to make them better places to live in. And there's a fine dance that we as educators do. We want to give our students voice and choice. However, we sometimes lead our students to the issues that we want them to see. And so allowing students to realize the issues in their communities that they're passionate about, and helping them realize that there is a real need for change in this area around food deserts. So helping students advocate for themselves to make positive change in their communities, I think is the call to action that I would have for educators. So allow your students that space in your classroom using your content knowledge, whether that's English, history, science, math, or any other elective. Allow your students that space to move our district forward and to move our communities forward in this idea of learning about how food can affect us.
That's a big part of our learning, utilizing the 5 C's: communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and not just learning about abstract things, but this is something that's very real in the community that's happening and can give our students an opportunity to do something good with something that's happening in their community right now. And you're inviting students to also be a part of this.
Absolutely.
So this could include soapbox speeches and volunteering and education opportunities even. Wonderful.
Absolutely. And having students create their own action plans as well, so that they feel that they were part of the change.
Wow. So as they're doing the research and kind of looking at food deserts to food oases, going through this experience, maybe some ideas will come in their mind about things that they can do to continue to take that next step forward. They could be a part of the change. They could be a part of the next step. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we look at our students and think they're so young, they're not capable of doing these things. But some of the best action plans that I've heard have come from our young students. So giving them that space to have that voice is so important.
I'm so excited because I already heard about from my 7th graders the idea of a recipe book. I heard another person talking about going with their relatives and walking together to a farmer's market, and this being a family kind of activity. I talked to another student who talked about bringing what they learned back to their own homes and creating little community gardens in their own homes. And this is just like 2 weeks. I just had a chance to talk about this just for a little bit, and so many ideas forming already. I can't wait to see what happens as the months unfold.